Hello, this is Mr. Patrick's Corner. Today we're going to talk about gun control, mass shootings, and what we can do about it. The first mass shooting was a guy named Whitman down in Texas. He took over the Austin College clock tower. It also will show why we have the need for the Second Amendment. This ex-Marine, he killed his mother and his wife with a knife. He loaded up all of his guns. He had a 700 Remington, an M1 carbine, lots of pistols, a shotgun. He put them in a crate, a box, a footlocker probably, and he, with a dolly, took him up to the top of the tower. From there, he had a perfect sniper position. He started killing people, and nobody knew what was happening for the first 5-10 minutes, and then they started seeing people drop. And then the people of Texas, those people who have the right to carry arms because of our Second Amendment rights, they grabbed their rifles out of the back of their pickup trucks and they put down covering fire. 3 police officers showed up, and one of them was basically a civilian, a guy named Crump. And he helped the police officers get into the tower. And while they were going up, he says, "If this is serious, you need to deputize me." They deputized him, and he went up with the 4 men. He also got a rifle from one of the police officers because the officer had his pistol. So they come up the stairwell. They get in a position. Crump fires a shot around the corner. This distracts Whitman, and Whitman then is shot by the other 2 officers. It affected Crump all through his life. After 3 or 4 years, he couldn't stay in Texas. He told his wife that he was going to strike it rich in Las Vegas. He became a slot machine technician, and he later became a pit boss for the slots. He died in 2001. And in the 1970s, they asked him, "Why did you climb up to the tower?" And he came back and he said, "Kitty Genovese." Most people don't know who Kitty Genovese was. She was a lady in New York who was stabbed to death in front of these tall apartment buildings where everybody could see what was happening, but nobody called the police. And he just had to do what he had to do. He wasn't proud of it. It affected him all through his life, the killing of Whitman. I'm talking about this story now because NBC was talking about the rural Texas shooter who took out his AR-15 and shot through the walls of a church, killing 14 people. And that person shouldn't have had a firearm, but he was charged with assault and battery on his wife, domestic abuse. He served 12 months in a stockade and was given a dishonorable discharge. He should never have had a weapon. But they didn't post it to the FBI database that says you can or cannot have a weapon. And that's how this guy got his gun and mowed down all those policemen, all those churchgoers. But he was thwarted because he was about to charge in and finish everybody off. But a neighbor with another automatic AR-15 started firing back, and the guy chickened out. Then the neighbor flagged down another guy, and they chased him down, and they took care of him. I was in a similar situation. It's April 29th. right after the Rodney King verdict. I'm delivering on a flatbed truck boxes that says auto parts. There was no auto parts, they were just display deals. I'm in on Century Boulevard, right below the airport. And we have guys there was one black guy walking around with an AR-15. I convinced him to take the stuff off, and I took off. I couldn't get on the freeway because it was closed down because of all the rioting. So I walked. I took my truck around to the back side and took the side roads back. Through that, I saw nothing but looting and terror. But it didn't happen in Koreatown. Why was that? Because the Koreans got on their roofs, got their weapons, their pistols, their shotguns, their automatic weapons, semi-automatic weapons, and they also had the Korean radio station get on the waves, get on the airways and say to any, come down if you are been an ex-Korean Marine. And they stood off the rioters and they drove them out of Koreatown. Where were the police? Where was the National Guard? Well, Tom Brady, the mayor of Los Angeles, and the police chief at the time had a thing. They didn't want the same situation that happened on the Watts riots, where police officers went down and shot indiscriminately. So the police said, no, we're not going to do anything. We're going to wait until we get the National Guard out. But by that time, Koreatown would have been zip. Now, I don't have a lot of ideas here about preventing mass shootings, but I do have a very, very good idea for taking care of this problem of firearms. I'd like to see the United States set up a national internal identification system. Everybody has an ID card. The ID card should state whether you can have a gun or you can't have a firearm. Or do you have the privilege of working in the United States or not working? Are you allowed to vote or not? This is a simple idea that should be thought out. I'm not an expert, but it makes sense. What are we going to do now, you tell me, with the 12 million undocumented workers in this country? Probably 14 by now. Well, you should allow them, if they didn't commit any crimes, violent crimes, you should give them a chance to be able to work and stay in the country. Their children will become naturalized Americans if they were born here, or if they were brought in. They should automatically receive citizenship. But you can't allow them to bring anybody in besides what are people that are already here. They should pay a fine and then pay a licensing fee every month based on their income. This allows them to work and stay in the United States. We shouldn't allow anybody else in unless they apply for citizenship. We shouldn't allow them to come into the United States unless they do it through legal channels. And the legal channels should be opened up a little bit. We have very restrictive methods in the immigration. I think this would solve the problem. Hello, this is Patrick, Mr. Patrick's Corner. I'm adding a little bits and pieces here because I'm not really good at this, and I'm trying to make my point across. Most Americans don't know that the Castle Rock versus Gonzalez decision. Do you know that the police officers don't even need to come out? That the Supreme Court says they don't have to stop something. Can you imagine? This one lady, her husband took her kids. She had a restraining order. She had all the paperwork. She called them numerous times. She went down there, and they decided, nah, that's not my business. Turned out later that the husband had killed himself and killed the children. And when she went into court, the Supreme Court said, nope, they don't have any right to, there's nothing in the Constitution says that they have to do something. That's a lot of wonderful baloney, but that's what the Supreme Court said. So you're out there by your lonesome. And if you don't have some way to protect yourself, nobody's going to protect you. You've seen how these incidents have happened in Beverly Hills. That poor lady who got knocked down by that automobile and her stuff stolen. Well, she was 1 block away from the Beverly Hills Police Department. This is one of the finest police departments in California. And they couldn't stop these hooligans. This is a problem we have. We have lawlessness, and it doesn't seem that anybody cares. So, again, I wish you guys, if you post my video, please post it to Beau of the Fifth Column and Colinar. I'd like to see their opinions on this. A national identification card makes sense. It allows you to say, yes, you can have a firearm. No, you cannot have a firearm. If you violate or do a crime, this would be a way to prevent those crimes because you could lose your right to your firearms. Also, if you have a false flag report stating that you've abused your wife or something, or you've had a domestic abuse, it should be very clear to the person reporting domestic abuse that if they lied, they're going to go to the Hoosgow. So, again, please post it to Beau and Colinar. Thank you for watching Mr. Patrick's Corner. We're going to talk about a booklet that I think is very important for every American. You get these free from your congressman. You just call them up and say, hey, I'd like a copy of the Constitution of the United States. They also have other things in there, like the Declaration of Independence, some of the ideas of the Founding Fathers. And you read it and you understand that these guys were doing something revolutionary. They got a lot of their ideas from John Locke. He was a parliamentarian in Great Britain. I'll give you one comment that I always found interesting. My devotion to the Constitution, I regard it as a work of the purest patriots, wisest statement that ever existed, aided by the smiles of a benevolent providence. That means God. Also appears the divine interposition in our behalf. That was Daniel Webster. That was after the founding of the American Revolution. Daniel Webster was in the beginnings of another situation, a dissolution of the United States. This is just prior to the Civil War. He was trying to stop it before it happened. And he was trying his best. Henry Clay, Daniel Webster, they formed compromises to save their country, which is ours. Here's another one from Benjamin Franklin. I have so much faith in the general government of the world by providence that I can hardly conceive of a transaction of such monumental importance to the welfare of millions. Should it be suffered to pass without being in some degree influenced and guided and governed by an omnipotent presence and a benefactor ruler. Also, Benjamin Franklin had another great quote. Every time you think that you give up a little freedom to have more security, you'll find that you have neither. Benny was a smart guy. I think most people don't read this book that's handed out for free. Every person who has a family should sit down and read part of it every night to their children, so they have an appreciation of what kind of country they're living in. I know I sound like this crackpot, but it was those crackpots George Washington got fed up with being cheated by his British. He hired people in Great Britain to trade his product and to send merchandise back to him. He sent first quality cotton and tobacco, and he got bupkis back, stuff that wasn't of the top quality. There wasn't much you could do about it either, because Great Britain had set up this system where you sent them your best product, but you weren't allowed to manufacture. And we talk about marijuana and prohibition. Well, believe it or not, Rhode Island was the center of the rum running of the 1700s. They actually they got into fights with British cutters. That's tax collectors, basically. Even sunk a few of them. Stephen Hopkins was one of the delegates to the Continental Congress. He was also, they put his name on a Liberty ship during World War II. And that ship fought a German raider. That was a funny name for a ship that looked like a civilian ship. It was basically a pirate ship, and they'd fly under false colors. They sucked this ship in, and the Stephen Hopkins decided to fight. They almost lost everybody. They damaged the raider so badly that he thought that they had fought with a cruiser. It was a special moment. That's what our country is about, those special moments. And then we don't appreciate what we have here. We don't go out and vote. We had the lowest turnout in California. We have these... I have to take a couple of deep breaths because I despise my government in Sacramento. We have this bizarre person, Gavin Newsom, who's our Congress. We also have these people in the Assembly and the Senate that I sometimes wonder what planet they live on. We have to do things in this state to make it function. We're losing people, we're losing industry, we're trying to push weird things down. Can you imagine you won't be able to buy a natural gas stove that'll stop climate change? I guess these dummies don't actually understand that China and India are the largest producers of fossil fuel pollution. And they're talking, well, the Chinese are doing better. No, the Chinese are not doing better. They just have a secret. Their one-party system tells everybody what to do, and they're having problems controlling their population because they're tired of being told what to do. Now, you want to put that same thought into the United States of America? Americans do not like being told what to do. It's just against our nature. You tell us we can't do something and we do it. Like marijuana, now we've legalized it. But we have a few people that want to they know that they can make more money because the one price is way up here and then they can sell it way down there. They don't think that they need to pay to grow pot. So in my area, they raided them. They found 3 pot farms underground. God, can you imagine with the kind of brain power they have that they grow underneath the ground? They were finding these guys because of how much water usage they were doing. So they put in special drip irrigation and cut their water usage by 3/4. This is America. Americans are the most obstinate, thick-headed bunch of dummies God ever put on this planet. But if you tell them we can't do something, they'll go out and do it just to spite you. And we're not voting. We're not taking care of this problem because the Gen Xers and the other Z generation, whatever, they don't want to get involved. Well, My generation was different because they got involved because of Vietnam. They didn't want to go. They couldn't even find Vietnam on a map, for crying out loud. But we went there. And you'll see, if you study American history, how we've done this over and over and over again. It's like we don't like gays in the military. But von Steuben was hired by Benjamin Franklin in Paris to come to the United States. Benny gave him a whole bunch of titles he didn't have. He was basically a German captain, and he'd been taken off the list. He also was gay, and he was a flaming gay. Not only did he have one lover, he had two. Von Steuben told General Washington, if you don't like my work, you don't pay me. If my work is satisfied, then you can pay me, and then you can give me my increase in support. Von Steuben took certain units out in Valley Forge, and he trained them separately, and then they brought in more. It's a great story. You should read it. Then, after the war, he becomes the first Secretary General of the United States. He's the guy that finds the fraud, the Inspector General. So when you think of, you don't want gays in the military, you think gays don't belong in America, boy, you got a world of hurt coming to you. Like my dad told me, if you believe in Christianity and these people are gay, then God made a mistake. Now, God's not supposed to make a mistake. And that's the point that I want you to understand. We should think about people as people. Don't think of them about what religion they are. My grandfather, who went to Cuba with the Rough Riders, charged up San Juan Hill, he spoke broken English because he was from Poland. He came over and he told my Uncle Harper and my father why he's so proud of being American. Because they don't tell you how to pray in America. And yet we have these zealots. That's the only way I can put it. They're zealots. They're trying to tell people how to live. Well, the good book says you should judge not, ye shall be judged. And that should be banged into their heads. Well, thank you again for watching Patrick's Corner. I hope you subscribe and like, and have a nice day.